overheard at a dinner party recently. So, you're a doctor? Yes, ma'am. Tell me something interesting about your patients. Ma'am, I had a student once who presented a 70-year-old with diabetes. Did you say student? Do you teach? Yes, ma'am. Actually, at a medical college, we teach. Oh, so you must be interacting with your students a lot. Yes, ma'am. Actually, this particular chap I know very well because he played the keyboards for our recent production of Fiddler on the Roof. What? I think I better start at the beginning. A few years back, as I was driving home from work one evening, it struck me that there are 3 questions which are central to professional life as I saw it. The 3 questions were, 1, what are you good at doing? 2, what do you want to do? And 3, what are you doing? The next day to this epiphanic moment of discovery of the 3 central questions happened to be a Sunday. And we had a carpenter at our place commissioned to do a piece of work. As I watched him work, a block of wood was gradually transformed into a sturdy table with elegant rounded edges, a firm feel, and a perfectly polished surface. I felt that I was in the presence of a master. The 3 questions, when applied to him, seemed to fit perfectly. What was he good at doing? Obviously, carpentry. What did he want to do? Seemingly, carpentry. What was he doing? Carpentry. This man was among those chosen few for whom all the 3 questions had a single answer. It is possible to have disparate answers to the questions. For example, a man good at using a computer may want to be a doctor and end up heading a design company, and many others perhaps. So there I was, fixed on the seemingly neat metrics, busy slotting people on how many of their answers merged on a scale of 3. Till one evening, my wife and I went to a concert and watched a musician perform. He sang a lovely set of songs, sending us into raptures as he softly strummed his guitar. We met with him after the concert. And as I congratulated him, I slipped in my 3 questions. I said, so, you're so good at doing this. I'm sure you wanted to be a musician all your life. Is this what you do for a living? To my surprise, he said, no. I'm a software engineer. I work with a group that has 5 patents to its name. And he went on to describe how he loved that job. And as he spoke, it became clear to me that it wasn't so simple after all. There was a 4th question. What are you good at doing? What do you want to do? What are you doing? And what else are you doing? Armed with this realization, I began looking around. And I saw so many people who were good at what they basically did for a living, but who were also doing something else. And in many cases, a significant something else. I saw a plastic surgeon who's a great artist and whose works have been exhibited on many occasions. As with the musician, I was struck with the beauty of his work, even as I was struck by the fact that he was a renowned and excellent plastic surgeon as well. I regularly meet an ENT surgeon who's a stand-up comic and a medical inventor, and apparently excels at all that he pursues. And there's the architect who's a gifted percussionist, the busy program manager and IT executive by day who transform into exquisite choreographers and dancers by evening, the physiatrist who dances Bharatanatyam. I could go on. All these people pass the 3-question test with flying colors. They're good at what they do for a living. They want to do it, and they're doing it. But they're also doing something else. something beautiful, something fulfilling, something which seems to make a difference to their lives. So I took a step back and looked at my own life and experience. As a medical student in this very town, I was subject to the same pushes and pulls of academic rigor as any student of my time. But then along came an opportunity to join what was then called the Bangalore Amateur Dramatic Society, or MADS for short. And thus began what was to become a long affair with the stage. We had an inspiring director who drilled it into us that it wasn't enough to love the grease paint and the footlights. You had to reach out and touch the paying public seated there in front of you. On one occasion, I remember him saying, and I quote, "Unless the deaf old lady in the last row understands you, don't even bother showing up." Unquote. MADS was a lovely experience. 3 full-length plays and a few small productions happened in those wonder years. Side by side, my years of studentship went on. I completed my graduation in medicine and was unleashed into the real world of healthcare and patient interaction. Did my experience with theater help me in my vocation? I think it did, but more about that in a bit. The years moved on. It was 1997. And I happened to meet with a friend, again from Bangalore. And she told me that she started an organization which promotes musical and theatrical talent while raising funds for charity. This seemed to me to be an excellent idea, and I enthusiastically joined her with my wife, my pillar of support to this day. And thus began my acquaintance with the Cause Foundation, an organization with whom I was to be associated over the next 20 years and counting. Our formula was simple. Our director would buy the copyright for a musical and get the group together sometime in June. We would rehearse long and hard thereafter, late into the evenings. And every year, at the end of August or the beginning of September, a beautiful Broadway musical was born. There is a saying which goes, "Be careful with your dreams. They so often come true." As a fresh-faced young lad, growing up, watching the likes of Christopher Plummer in The Sound of Music, Rex Harrison in My Fair Lady, and Topol playing the village milkman and Fiddler on the Roof, little did I even dream that I would one day get the opportunity to actually play Captain Von Trapp, or Professor Higgins, or the absolutely delightful Tevier. But that's exactly what happened. Thanks to this great organization, the wonderful lady who leads it, and to that gifted group of people who sing, act, dance, organize, and perform while doing something totally different for a living. My own pursuit of a livelihood, meanwhile, went on. I had decided on a career in community medicine to see if we could make a difference by working at the roots of health problems and by reaching out to populations which lacked access. Over the years, I became interested in the health of the elderly, and today I work with a team which runs a senior citizen health service in rural and urban areas around the city of Bangalore. Now I ask myself, has my experience with doing something else helped me in my profession? To my mind, theater is the science of expression elevated to an art form. It brings in elements of communication, of reaching out to people, understanding them, and working together in teams to create something that is greater than the sum of its individual parts. And when I look back at my chosen profession, I find that the practice of medicine and public health calls for all that and more. For instance, when working with our elderly patients, I seem to hear the voice of my director as he says, "If the old lady with a hearing problem doesn't understand you, don't even bother showing up." The practice of community medicine calls for a lot of communication with individuals and groups of people. It calls for teamwork, for example, to to organize an outreach rural geriatric clinic, just like the teamwork required to stage Young Frankenstein, or Hello Dolly, or Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And there's the little bits and pieces of philosophy and profound thought that are hidden like little gems in each of these productions. For instance, in the classic My Fair Lady, Eliza Doolittle is a common flower girl who yearns to be a lady and subjects herself to the brutal training techniques of Professor Higgins, cushioned to an extent by the professor's kind friend, Colonel Pickering. Towards the end of the play, Eliza is heard saying, and I quote, "The difference between a flower girl and a lady is not in the way she behaves, but in the way she's treated. I will always be a flower girl to Professor Higgins because he treats me like a flower girl and always will. But I will always be a lady to Colonel Pickering because he treats me like a lady and always will." Belonging as I do in the real world to an organization with a hierarchy ranging from a director to a ward boy, I think there is something I can learn from that sentiment. Another favorite is from our 2008 production of All Shook Up, a musical drama based on the songs of Elvis Presley. My character is an elderly widower who develops a gigantic crush on a young lady in town, but finds himself completely tongue-tied in her presence. So he turns for advice to a young man in town, and the youngster tells him to remove his glasses, ruffle his hair, but, he says, above all else, you know what you got to be? "No idea," says the elderly man. "Cool," says the youngster. This might sound intuitive to my younger friends seated here, but I can think of countless instances of harried residents of mine grappling with 14 issues on a Monday morning concerning their patients, their colleagues, and their seniors. And I find myself desperately wanting to reach out to them and say, "You know what you got to be? Cool." So, as I stand here before you, even as I stand before groups of patients, of colleagues, of students, trying to reach out to them, trying to look into their eyes and to make a difference, believe me when I say that I'm truly beholden to that other thing in my life, which has taught me so much and made me who I am today. As it happens, I'm not alone in advocating the pursuit of that other thing. Research shows that a hobby or a creative pursuit can help in many ways. It boosts self-confidence. It improves synaptic connections in the brain. It raises quality of life. And most importantly, it's a determinant of what we call successful aging. So you can choose to read, to dance, to paint, act, sing, perform, do any of the million things there are to do apart from your job or vocation. And even as you do that other thing, be assured that it will help you do your core job better and make you happier. It will also help you in the years to come, which at my stage, or indeed any stage in life, are the years that matter. And so, ladies and gentlemen, as we live our lives doing what we do, and as we reach the end of our lives on this beautiful planet, I foresee a scene at the pearly gates of heaven where we wait for admittance. The man over there will ask us all about our lives, who we were, and what we did. And as you give him an account of your life, your family, and your work, be prepared for him to ask you, "So tell me, what was that other thing you did?"